Isang motorista sa India sinalpok ng humaharurot na itim na kotse.
Ating alamin kung nakaligtas ba ang sakay na motorsiklo ang lagay po ng mga biktima. Ibabahagi maya-maya. Magandang gabi. Ako po si Rikki Mathay.
Ako si Rikki Alagao Flores. Ito ang mata ng Agila International. Para naman sa mga headlines ngayong araw ng Biyernes.
Dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte nasa ICC na para sa initial trial proceedings sa kasong crimes against humanity.
Ang pulso ng mga Pilipinong nasa the Netherlands ukol sa kalagayan ni dating Pangulong Duterte ating alamin.
South Korean Acting President Choi Sang-mok nanawagan na irespeto ang desisyon ng korte.
Japanese influencer pinagsasaksak sa gitna ng live stream.
At NBA superstar Stephen Curry nagtala na naman ng panibagong record. Nagsimula na po ang initial trial proceedings sa kasong crimes against humanity ni dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte sa International Criminal Court o ICC.
Ang dating Pangulong Duterte ay kinasuhan dahil sa umunoy extrajudicial killing sa war on drugs sa kanyang administrasyon. Ayon kay Attorney Angela Aguinaldo, isang abogado sa International at Foreign Criminal Law na nagpapractice sa Germany, inaasahan sa pagharap ng dating Pangulo ang pagberipika sa kanya kung siya talaga ang akusado. Anya ipaalam din kay Duterte kung ano ba ang mga inihabla laban sa kanya para na rin siya ay mabigyan ng abiso. Ano ang karapatan niya sa ilalim ng Rome Statute at rules ng ICC.
Sa kanilang opinyon na mababasa sa dissenting opinion ng dalawang huradong ito, sinabi nila na kailangan nating ipaghiwalay kasi yung tinatawag na existence of jurisdiction o kaya yung exercise of jurisdiction. Oo, pag nag-withdraw ang Pilipinas, mananatiling may kapangyarihan di umano ang International Criminal Court para dinigin ang mga habla laban kay dating Presidente Duterte. Pero kailangan pa rin tingnan kung kailan ito magagamit. Kung kailan ba pwedeng i-enforce o gamitin ang kapangyarihan na ito. So, sa kanilang palagay, dahil ang dissenting opinion na to, sa kanilang palagay ng itong dalawang huradong ito, na sa pag-withdraw ng Pilipinas mula sa International Criminal Court na naaapektuhan ang pag-enforce ng jurisdiction. No? Ito ang termino na ginagamit natin sa batas at sa international law. So hindi lang siya simpleng question o issue ng jurisdiction. Pero gaano kalimit o gaano to kalakas na nandun pa ba siya na pwedeng i-enforce ng International Criminal Court laban sa Pilipinas at kay dating Presidente Duterte.
Nilinaw rin ni Attorney Aguinaldo na depende anya sa mga ihaharap na ebidensya ng prosecution sa initial appearance kung ipagpapatuloy ang paglilitis. Maaari pa rin pasyahan ng ICC na i-dismiss ang kaso laban sa dating Pangulo.
Hiniling na Malacanang sa International Criminal Court ang fair trial kay dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte kaugnay sa reklamong crimes against humanity rito. Sinabi ni Presidential Communications Office Undersecretary Attorney Claire Castro, kailangan ng gobyerno na masiguro ng Pilipinas ang patas na paglilitis sa dating Pangulo dahil siya pa rin ay isang Pilipino.
Base po sa RA 9851, bilang Pilipino, hindi lang dahil bilang dating Pangulo, si dating Pangulong Duterte, kailanganin din po natin ng gobyerno na ma-assure po, masigurado natin na nagkakaroon po ng fair trial. Lalong-lalo na po, Pilipino po ang dating Pangulong Duterte.
Kinumpirma ng Philippine Embassy sa The Hague na mismong si dating Pangulong Duterte ang nagsabi na siya ang nagpa-health check-up habang siya ay nasa kustodiya ng International Criminal Court o ICC. Kasunod dito na naging pahayag ni former Executive Secretary Salvador Medialdea na hindi niya alam kung saan dinala ang dating Pangulo. Sinabi kasi ni Medialdea na there was no Duterte inside the facility sa isang grupo ng mga Pilipino na lumapit sa kanya sa The Hague. Dahil rito ay kumalat sa social media ang mga false claims na nawawala ang dating Pangulo.
Dumating na po sa The Hague, the Netherlands, si Vice President Sara Duterte para sa pre-trial ng kanyang ama na si dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. Nagpasalamat po ito sa mga sumusuporta sa kanilang pamilya at sinabing hindi ang mga Duterte ang problema, kundi kahirapan, kagutuman at ang nangyayaring walang kaunlaran sa bansa.
Mensahe sa lahat ng ating mga kababayan kahapon, nung isang araw, ngayon, na patuloy na nagpapakita ng kanilang suporta sa ating dating Pangulo. Nakikita po natin yung kanilang mga peace rallies doon sa Pilipinas at sa iba't ibang lugar sa mundo. So nagpapasalamat tayo, napakahalaga mo. Pangalawa, nagpapakita ng suporta. At nagpapakita ng suporta at nagpapahayag ng kanilang nararamdaman.
Of course.
Huwag nating kalimutan na ang problema ng bayan ay hindi ang mga Duterte. Ang totoong problema ng bayan, kayong lahat nandito kayo, nakikipagsapalaran kayo sa ibang bansa dahil walang oportunidad doon sa ating bansa. Patuloy ang kahirapan,
Check.
patuloy ang kagutuman, patuloy na walang nangyayaring kaunlaran. Nakikita nyo yung Netherlands, di ba?
Yes po.
Gusto natin maging Netherlands ang
Ilang sandali na lamang ngayong gabi ay magsisimula na ang pre-trial ng dating Pangulo sa International Criminal Court.
Nagtipon-tipon ang ilang grupo ng mga Pilipino sa harap ng Scheveningen Prison bilang pagsuporta kay dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. Umawit sila ng lupang hinirang habang winawagayway ang watawat ng Pilipinas. Ang ilan sa mga Pilipinong sumali sa pagsuporta kay Duterte sa The Hague ay galing sa iba't ibang lungsod at sa mga kalapit na bansa, kagaya ng Germany. Nanindigan sila na walang jurisdiksyon ng International Criminal Court sa Pilipinas, kung kaya dapat lamang na ibalik ang dating Pangulo sa Pilipinas.
We are here actually because we want to show our love and support to our beloved former President Rodrigo Roa Duterte po. That's basically the gist bakit nandito kami ngayon. Because of our love and support to tinuturing naming tatay ng mga Pilipino.
Samantala, sinabi ng Malacanang na hindi nito pipigilan ang pagpoprotesta ng mga taga-suporta ni dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte sa iba't ibang lugar sa Mindanao. Ayon kay Presidential Communications Office Undersecretary Claire Castro, karapatan ng mga ito na ipahayag ang kanilang sentimiento tungkol sa dating Pangulo. Gayunman ay nagbabala ang Malacanang na huwag lalampas sa limitasyon ng pagpapahayag ng saloobin ang mga taga-suporta ni Duterte.
At sinabi po ni Comelec Chairperson George Erwin Garcia na ipoproklama pa rin nito si dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte kung siya ay mahahalal na mayor ng Davao City sa May 12 elections. Ito ay kahit nakakulong si Duterte sa The Hague. Ayon kay Garcia, nananatiling kandidato si Duterte at ang pangalan nito ay nakasulat pa rin sa balota. Ipinaliwanag rin niya na alinsunod sa batas, maaari lamang ma-disqualify ang isang kandidato sa pagtakbo kung mahatulan ito sa pamamagitan ng final judgment. Samantala, kinumpirma ni Brigadier General Jean Fajardo na hindi na magsasampa ng kasong direct assault ang Philippine National Police o PNP laban sa common law wife ni dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte na si Hanelet Avancenia. Nakausap na niya ng personal ni Special Action Force Force Director General Mark Pespes ang pulis na miyembro ng SAF at sinabi niya na hindi siya magsasampa ng kaso. Tanggap niya raw na bahagi ng kanilang trabaho ang nangyaring insidente. Matatandaan pong nagtamo na malaking bukol sa noo ang pulis matapos umano siyang pukpukin ng cellphone ni Hani sa gitna ng pag-aresto kay Duterte noong Martes.
Personal decision po ng polis na wag na po magsampa ng kaso at ang reason niya ay kasama yon sa hazard po ng kanyang trabaho kaya okay lang at magpapagaling lang daw siya at back to work na daw po siya.
Sa ibang balita, supalpal sa artificial intelligence o AI tool na si Grok ang 9-dash line ng China. Nang tanungin kasi ni Philippine Coast Guard Commodore J. Tariela si Grok kung may legal justification ba ang 9-dash line o 10-dash line ng China, ay sinabi nitong invalid ang paniniwala ng Beijing. Paliwanag ni Grok, the PRC's 9-dash line in the South China Sea has no legal basis under international law. Sinabi rin nito na taliwas sa UNCLOS ang claims ng China. At kung susundan ang historic rise na sinasabi ng China na iginuhit noong taong 1947 ay nag-overlap ito sa zones ng ibang bansa. Wala rin anyang basihan ang 9 o 10-dash line ng China dahil ito raw ay pure geopolitical flexing at hindi naman batas.
Samantala, good news naman po para sa mga motorista dahil masusundan pa ang tapyas presyo sa mga produktong petrolyo. Batay sa projection ng Department of Energy Oil Industry Management Bureau, bababa ng 10 hanggang 40 sentimos ang presyo ng kada litro ng gasolina. 20 hanggang 70 sentimos naman ang kada litro ng diesel, habang nasa 30 hanggang 60 sentimos naman sa kada litro ng kerosene o gas.
Susunod, acting president ng South Korea na nawagan para sa kapayapaan.
Kaso ng Mpox sa Democratic Republic of Congo, dumarami.
At Russia susuportahan ang ceasefire proposal ng US at Ukraine. Yan at iba pang mga balita sa pagbabalik ng Mata ng Agila International.
This portion.
Ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa new era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Kalma lang habang wala pang inilalabas na desisyon ng Constitutional Court ng South Korea tungkol sa mga kasong kriminal ni impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol. Yan ang panawagan ni South Korean Acting President Choi Sang-mok sa publiko. Hinikayat din niyang irespeto at tanggapin ng bansa ang anumang desisyon ng korte. Handa na rin anyang gobyerno na mag-deploy ng mga pulis sa Seoul para sa seguridad ng bansa. Nangako rin si Choi na hindi nito kukonsintihin ang anumang aksyon na lumalaban sa otoridad ng gobyerno. Sa ngayon ay patuloy na dumarag sa harapan ng korte ang pro at Yoon supporters. Dahil rito hinigpitan na ng pulisya ang seguridad sa Constitutional Court, nag-install na sila ng barbed wire at fences sa paligid ng korte at ipinagbawal na rin ang paggamit ng drone sa lugar.
Lumalala po ang Mpox outbreak ngayon na kasalukuyang krisis panseguridad sa silangang Congo. Alamin natin ang mga detalye mula kay Myla Simbulan.
Dahil sa hindi mawaring sitwasyong panseguridad sa rehiyon, lalong bumigat ang suliranin ng health system sa Eastern Congo. Ito ay sa gitna ng dumaraming kaso ng Mpox doon dahil sa kaguluhang panlokal na peperwisyo ang access at ang pamalagiang pagpapatupad ng prevention measures laban sa Mpox kung kaya't tumataas ang bilang ng mga naimpeksyon doon. Ayon kay Professor Birindwa, Medical Director ng Bukavu University Hospital, patuloy ang pagkalat ng sakit na ito sa komunidad.
Cette semaine, on peut dire que ça augmente par rapport à la semaine qui vient de passer. Parce que la semaine passée, on était autour d'une quinzaine. Mais cette semaine, on est passé à une vingtaine. Donc depuis que l'épidémie est là, ça fait des yo-yo. Donc ça monte, ça descend, ça monte, ça descend. En fait, sur le plan épidémiologique, c'est une courbe qui est trop parlante. C'est que la maladie est active dans la communauté. Normalement, il serait mieux que ça baisse et que ça ne remonte plus. Mais quand ça baisse et ça remonte, ça veut dire que la maladie circule et les mesures de prévention ne sont pas respectées.
Inilarawan ni Mpox patient Esther Wongwakonkwa kung paanong bumubuti ang kanyang pakiramdam sa tulong ng medical facility tulad ng Bukavu University Hospital.
Mercredi nikafika hapa magharibi bakaniambia niingie hapa kukitanda, nikaingia bakaanza niinjekte madawa. Kisha sasa bakaniambia April ile mercredi wakaniambia tulitafuta tungekupatia za huku chini lakini haziko. Kwa hiyo tuliandika za huku chini 2 na moja huku huru lakini zile madawa haziko. Bakaanza niinjekte baka hivi sasa nishansikia movement ya bien.
Nakapwesto ang isolation wards at mahigpit na biosecurity measures upang gamutin ang Mpox patients. Dagdag ni Burundi, umaasa sa kanila ang mga pasyente sa gitna ng labanan doon.
Quand la crise était en train de s'installer, je vais dire la guerre, on a eu le temps de parler avec nos patients qui étaient là. On les a rassurés que nous, on n'allait pas partir et qu'on allait rester avec eux. Et ce qui a fait que nous, on n'a pas eu de patients qui ont vidé les camps, qui ont quitté les centres. Donc tous nos patients étaient restés. Et comme le patient était resté, avec l'appui qu'on a, comme on les soigne gratuitement, et on les nourrit aussi en même temps, ça a fait qu'il y avait quand même pas mal de garanties.
Nagsimula ang labanan sa pagitan ng Democratic Republic of the Congo at Rwanda noong 2022. Ito ay matapos pasukin ng puwersang Rwanda ang Congo upang suportahan ang March 23 Movement o M23 rebel group. Kabilang ang pakikipaglaban kasama nito ang laban sa Congolese military at pro-government militias. May nasimulan para sa mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Sinang-ayunan ni Russian President Vladimir Putin ang mga proposal ng Estados Unidos para sa isang ceasefire sa Ukraine. Pero binigyan diin ni Putin na dapat ding ayusin ang mga dahilan kung bakit nagkaroon ng alitan at nararapat din anyang ayusin ang maraming kritikal na issue upang magkaroon ng pangmatagalang kapayapaan.
Мы согласны с предложениями прекратить боевые действия. Но исходим из того, что это прекращение должно быть таким, которое привело бы к долгосрочному миру и устранило бы первоначальные причины этого кризиса.
Nagpasalamat din ang Russian leader kay US President Donald Trump dahil anya sa pagsisikap nito na wakasan na ang digmaan sa pagitan ng Moscow at Kiev. Ngunit paano raw magkakaroon ng garantiya na hindi na mangyayari uli ang digmaan at paano magiging organisado ang planong ceasefire? Ito anya ay mga seryosong tanong na dapat talakayin kasama ang Estados Unidos ayon kay Putin.
Нам нужно и с американскими нашими коллегами, партнерами на этот счет переговорить. Может быть, с президентом Трампом созвониться и вместе с ним пообсуждать. Но сама по себе идея закончить этот конфликт мирными средствами нами поддерживается.
Samantala, upang tiyaking ligtas ang Poland sa Russia, nanawagan po si Polish President Andrzej Duda sa Estados Unidos na maglagay ng nuclear weapons sa Poland. Para sa ilang war experts, baka isipin ni Moscow leader Vladimir Putin na isang provokasyon ang pagkakaroon ng US nuclear base sa Poland. Kaagad namang dinipensahan ni President Duda ang kanyang proposal at sinabing ito ay isang defensive measure para palakasin ang nuclear deterrence sa kanilang bansa. Ito anya ang sagot ng Poland sa paglalagay ng Russia ng nuclear weapons sa Belarus na malapit lamang sa Poland. Sang-ayon din ang Polish leader sa proposal ng French President Emmanuel Macron na gumawa ng nuclear weapons umbrella sa ibang estado ng NATO.
May bagong balak ang mga namamahala sa Panama Canal ukol sa kung paanong paaandarin ang liquefied petroleum gas o LPG upang umabot sa mga potensyal na kliyente nito sa Asia. Si Bernard Gonzaga para sa detalye.
Noong Lunes, ipinahayag ni Canal Administrator Rikki Vasquez na may balak ang pamahalaan na magtayo ng isang pipeline na gagamitin upang mapagalaw ang LPG sa trade passage. Nangunguna ang bansang Japan sa mga potensyal na kliyente para sa gas na manggagaling sa Estados Unidos.
Que el volumen de gas de petróleo va a duplicarse en los próximos 10 años. Y esa es una capacidad que el país debe ofrecerle al mundo para mantenernos vigentes. Y de hecho es una versión nueva de lo que se hizo con el oleoducto transísmico para mover crudo del Pacífico al Atlántico. En este caso sería movimiento del Atlántico hacia el Pacífico con destino a Asia.
Nais ng kanal na palawakin ang operasyon nito matapos pahintulutan ng korte noong nakaraang taon. Plano ng administrasyon na bumuo ng reservoir o imbakan na malapit lamang. Ang Panama Canal ay isa sa pinakaabalang maritime trade passages sa mundo. Ang Japan naman ay isa sa pinakamalakas na customers ng LPG sa globo. Ang pahayag na ito ay sa gitna ng umiinit na tensyon sa pagitan ng US at Panama matapos sabihin ni Pangulong Donald Trump na nais nitong bawiin ang Panama Canal. Bernard Gonzaga para sa Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Sinabi ng Mexico na ito ay masinsinang nakikipag-usap sa Estados Unidos ukol sa taripang balak pa ring ipataw ng US sa bansa. Hinahabol ito ang panibagong deadline ng pagpapatupad ng taripa na sa ngayon ay sa 2 ng Abril. Jessica Bautista po para sa balitang yan.
Noong Huwebes, sinabi ni Mexican Economy Minister Marcelo Ebrard na nakatutok ang gobyerno nito sa pagkikipag-usap sa US ukol sa mga bantang taripa na ipapataw sa mga produktong papasok ng Amerika.
Vamos a tener pláticas, sí, estas semanas, muy intensas, planteando los puntos de vista de México sobre la base de lo que les acabo de decir. La integración con México es excepcional. No hay ningún otro país, ni Canadá, con la que se tenga una integración económica como la que hay entre México y Estados Unidos. Entonces actuaremos con sangre fría, resolución, firmeza y conseguir la mejor posición posible de México respecto a cualquier otro país.
Makailang ulit ng ibinanta, ipinatupad at inihinto ng US ang taripa laban sa Mexico. Ang taripa ay sinasabing makapipinsala sa ekonomiya ng dalawang bansa. Ito ay sa kabila ng kasunduan ukol sa malayang kalakalan sa pagitan ng mga bansang ito sa nakaraang 3 dekada. Ayon kay Ebrard, umaasa itong mas mabuting kondisyon ang abuti ng Mexico kaysa ibang bansa na tatamaan ng taripa ng US. Noong 6 ng Marso, binigyan ni Pangulong Donald Trump ang Mexico at Canada ng palugit ukol sa 25% taripa na ipinatupad ilang araw lamang ang nakaraan. Ayon kay Trump, lahat ng produktong sakop ng US, Mexico and Canada Trade Pact ay hindi isasali sa taripa hanggang 2 ng Abril. Samantala, sinabi ni Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum na aabangan ng kanyang gobyerno ang desisyon ng US sa 2 ng Abril bago ito magbanggit ng anumang potential retaliatory measures. Ani Ebrard, ang estratehiyang ito ng Pangulo ay nakakabuti sa Mexico.
Esta estrategia de firmeza, sangre fría, es la mejor estrategia posible. Y está dando resultados. Entonces vamos a continuar en esa línea de trabajo.
Ayon sa mga eksperto, ang taripang ito para sa mga produktong pumapasok ng US ay mas babalikatin ng mga mamimili kaysa ng mga negosyante. Jessica Bautista para sa Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Kinumpirma ng White House na ang pag-uusap sa pagitan ng Estados Unidos at ng Ukraine na ginanap sa Saudi Arabia ay naging produktibo. Narito ang mga detalye mula kay Mayfanway Zaragoza.
Noong Martes, sinabi ni White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt na positibo at produktibo ang kinalabasan ng pag-uusap ng top US at Ukrainian officials sa Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Ayon kay Leavitt, nakipagnegosasyon sina State Secretary Marco Rubio at National Security Advisor Mike sa Ukrainians at magbibigay ng readout ukol sa pag-uusap.
But I can assure you and everybody here and the American people that the news we've received from that meeting throughout the day and the President has been briefed on is positive. This meeting has been productive. I will let Secretary of State Rubio and our National Security Advisor speak to the specifics of...
Ang pag-uusap sa Saudi sa pagitan ng US at Ukraine ay makailang subok na magkasundo. Ang dalawang bansa kaugnay ng minerals deal na nais ng Ukraine na palitan ng karantiyang pansiguridad ng Washington sakaling nusubin muli ng Moscow ang Kiev. Noong 28 ng Pebrero, nauwi sa iringan ang dapat sana ay lagdaan ng minerals deal. Nagsagutan sina Pangulong Trump, Vice Presidente J.D. Vance at Pangulong Volodymyr Zelensky ng Ukraine sa Oval Office ng White House. Inakusahan ni Trump at Vance si Zelensky na kulang ang pagpapasalamat sa US bago pinalabas ang Ukraine President mula sa tanggapan. Mayfanway Zaragoza para sa Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Binawi naman ng White House ang nominee ni Pangulong Donald Trump para sa bagong hepe ng Centers for Disease Control and Prevention ng US. Bakit kaya? Alamin po natin mula kay Rosel Feria.
Nagbago na ang isip ng Trump administration sa pagpili nito kay Republican former congressman at vaccine critic na si Dave Weldon bilang director ng Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Nakaschedule sanang humarap ang doktor sa Senate Health, Education, Labor and Pensions Committee noong Huwebes para sa kanyang confirmation hearing. Ayon sa isang source, hindi sapat ang boto para kay Weldon upang makumpirma ang nominasyon niya sa Senado. Sa Kongreso, challenge ni Weldon ang mga pag-aaral na nagpapakita ng kaligtasan ng bakunang pambata na mapanganib ito at may uugnay sa autism. Ang teoryang ito ay sinusuportahan din ng kilalang vaccine skeptic na si Robert F. Kennedy Jr. na pinabubulaanan naman ng mga siyentipiko. Tumatanggap ang CDC ng taunang budget na $17.3 billion. Sumusubaybay ito sa rumeresponde sa mga bantang panlokal at panlabas na pampublikong kalusugan. 2/3 o 2/3 ng budget nito ay pumopondo sa public health and prevention activities ng state at local health agencies. Rosel Feria para sa Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Kumpiyansa si US President Donald Trump na magiging teritoryo ng Estados Unidos ang Greenland sa pamamagitan ng annexation. Iminungkahi ni Trump na maaaring maging instrumental si NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte sa pagtulong sa Estados Unidos na maangkin ang Greenland. Pero sinabi ni Rutte na ayaw niyang madamay ang NATO sa nasabing issue. Gayunpaman ay inamin ni Rata na tama si Trump sa pagbibigay diin sa strategic importance ng Greenland. Iginiit ni Trump na mahalagang magkaroon ng proteksyon ng US kaya dapat anyang magkaroon ng kasunduan para rito. Binanggit rin niya na hindi raw kayang proteksyonan ng Denmark ang Arctic Island dahil sa malayo ito sa Greenland.
Mr. President, Greenland, what is your vision for the potential annexation of Greenland and getting them potentially to...
Well, I think it'll happen, and I'm just thinking, I didn't give it much thought before, but I'm sitting with a man that could be very instrumental. You know, Mark, we need that for international security, not just security, international. But that whole area is becoming very important, and for a lot of reasons, the routes are, very direct to Asia, to Russia, and you have ships all over the place, and we have to have protection. So we're going to have to make a deal on that. And Denmark is not able to do that. Denmark's very far away and really has nothing to do. What happens? A boat landed there 200 years ago or something, and they say they have rights to it. I don't know if that's true. I don't think it is, actually. But we've been dealing with Denmark, we've been dealing with Greenland, and we have to do it. We really need it for national security.
Nakatakdang bumiyahe sa Russia si U.S. Middle East Envoy Steve Witkoff para makapagpulong kay President Vladimir Putin.
Well, President Zelensky sent a letter to the president. I think the president thought that it was a really good, positive first step. And from that, we're now in discussions to coordinate a meeting with the Ukrainians in Riyadh or even potentially Jeddah. So the city's moving around a little bit, but it will be Saudi Arabia. And I think the idea is to get down a framework for a peace agreement and an initial ceasefire as well.
Ito ay kasunod ng pagpayag ng Ukraine ng 30-day ceasefire na alok ng US. Patungo naman si US State Secretary Marco Rubio upang makausap ang mga foreign ministers ng G7 nations ukol sa mga naging diskusyon nila sa Saudi Arabia. Nakikipag-usap naman si US National Security Advisor Mike Waltz sa Russian counterpart nito ukol sa nasabing gagawing pulong.
They made concrete steps and concrete proposals, not only accepting our proposal for a full ceasefire, which you can see the details of which are in our joint statement that we released together, but we also got into substantive details on how this war is going to permanently end. I will talk to my Russian counterpart in the coming days. Secretary Rubio will be with G7 foreign ministers in the next couple of days. We have the NATO Secretary General in the White House on Thursday, and we'll take the process forward from there. So.
Umaasa ang White House na magiging mabunga ang nasabing pag-uusap. Magugunitang ipinagmalaki ni US President Donald Trump na kanyang gagawin ang lahat na makakaya para tuluyan ng matigil ang gera sa pagitan ng Russia at ng Ukraine.
I won't comment on that, but we had a great success yesterday. We have a full ceasefire if it kicks in. We have to see. It's up to Russia now, but we've had a good relationship with both parties, actually, and we'll see. We'll be knowing people are going to Russia right now as we speak, and hopefully we can get a ceasefire from Russia. And if we do, I think that would be 80% of the way to getting this horrible bloodbath finished. It's a bloodbath is taking place over there. I have no assessment, and I don't go by chances. I think it makes sense for Russia, a lot of downside for Russia, too. And we have a very complex situation solved on one side, pretty much solved. We've also discussed land and other things that go with it. We're not just doing it and saying ceasefire. We don't know what's happening. We know the areas of land we're talking about, whether it's pulled back or not pulled back. We've discussed a lot of the details of what has to go because we don't want to be wasting time.
Sa kabila ng patinding krisis sa Haiti, sinabi ng United Nations na hindi imposibleng maayos ito. Ito ay kung susuportahan ang kapulisan ng Haiti at kung tutulong ang mga kalapit bayan nito. Si Ana Cui para sa report.
Noong Martes, sinabi ni United Nations Haiti rights expert William O'Neill na naniniwala siyang maaaring maayos ang krisis sa Haiti kung susuplayan ng gobyerno ng sapat na kapulisan at kung aalalay ang mga kalapit bansa nito.
In Haiti, it's much smaller scale. This is doable. That's what's also quite frustrating. Haiti is doable. It's small. It's an island. It shouldn't really matter, but it's 90 minutes from Miami. I mean, it should be able to be fixed in the sense of getting control of the weapons flow, getting controls of the money flows, the drug trafficking that's helping support the gangs. And not, as I said, to answer Ida's question, you're not talking about 10,000, 20,000. You're talking about 2,500, maybe 3,000 well-trained and equipped international police. It's doable.
Nakatakdang talakayin ng UN Security Council ang isang hybrid security support model na magtatayo ng tanggapang pupuntuhan na magsusupply ng voluntary mission. Ito ay matapos mawalan nito ng tao at kagamitan ng tumumal ang kontribusyon. Kamakailan, humingi na ang Haiti ng isang formal na UN peacekeeping mission upang palakasin ang umaalog na kapulisan. Subalit ang kahilingang ito ay tinanggihan ng Russia at China. Mula pa noong 2022 nang hihingi na ng agarang international security support ang bansa. Ayon kay O'Neill, makatutulong ang support office sa pagsusupply ng kakailanganing mga kagamitan.
If the support office really does get up and running and can get things like helicopters, like better vehicles, like spare parts. I mean, I'm told it's not surprising. Haiti's roads, anybody's been to Haiti now, even in Port-au-Prince, it's like, so the vehicles break down. They need spare parts. Just getting the spare parts has become a major, major challenge. So anything that would smooth that out, speed it up, and get the MSS more of what it needs will be a good thing. But my understanding is a full-bore peacekeeping operation is not on the table for now. But, you know, things do change.
Nanawagan din si O'Neill sa mga kalapit bansa ng Haiti, partikular na ang Estados Unidos, na tumulong pa ng higit upang mapigilan ang pagpasok ng iligal ng armas na ginagamit ng mga grupong kriminal. Anya, hindi kaya ng Haiti's border police na pigilan ang pagpasok nito.
There's not a gun or bullet manufactured in Haiti, so if you stop the flow of guns and bullets, the gangs eventually literally run out of ammunition. And that's a quicker, faster, safer way to dismantle them than having to go in and fight them. So, yes, I met with the leaders of the Haitian police. They have a Haitian police unit called the Police Frontalière, the frontier police. And they, again, lack just about everything. They have 300, I was told by the director, 300 police to patrol the whole border.
At nagsimula na po ang live feed sa initial trial proceedings sa kaso ni dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte sa International Criminal Court. Atin pong panoorin.
Him what his date of birth was and what his place of birth is. Is that all right, Counsel?
Yes. Of course, I do. My birth month day is March 28, 1945. I was born in the province of Leyte in the Philippines.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. As a preliminary point. Very well. Thank you, Mr. Duterte. As a preliminary point, it is useful to clarify the nature and limited scope of this first appearance hearing. Today's hearing is neither the start of the trial, nor is it a confirmation of charges hearing. During today's hearing, no evidence will be collected or presented, and the issues of Mr. Duterte's guilt or innocence will therefore not be addressed. In accordance with Article 61 of the Rome Statute, the Court's founding treaty, and Rule 1211 of the Rules of Procedure and Evidence, the main purpose of this initial appearance is to answer three questions. Firstly, The Chamber must ensure that the person who was the subject of the arrest warrant has been informed of the crimes of which he is accused. Second, the Chamber must ensure that this person has been informed of his rights as recognised by the Rome Statute. Third, the Chamber must set a date on which it intends to hold a confirmation of charges hearing. The Chamber notes that your counsel, Mr. Duterte, filed two motions, one in relation with today's hearing, and you may be aware that these two motions have not been accepted by the Chamber because of the nature of today's hearing. No further discussion on the matter is necessary during this hearing because, as I said at an earlier stage, the aim of this hearing today is to introduce the parties and to ascertain the charges and to set a date for the confirmation of charges hearing at a later stage. With regard to the first point, I recall that Mr. Duterte has received a copy of the warrant for his arrest and that a redacted version of the prosecutor's application for the issuance of the warrant of arrest is public. I will now ask the court officer to read the charges against him. The charges will be read in English. Please, over to you, Madam Courtroom Officer. Thank you, Madam President. Your honours.
On 7 March 2025, Pre-Trial Chamber 1 concluded that there were reasonable grounds to believe that Mr. Duterte is criminally responsible pursuant to Article 25(3)(a) of the Rome Statute as an alleged indirect co-perpetrator for the crime against humanity of murder pursuant to Article 7(1)(a) of the statute as follows. A. Murder of at least 19 persons, allegedly drug pushers or thieves, killed by members of the Davao Death Squad in various locations in or around Davao City, Philippines between 2011 and 2016. B. Murder of at least 24 persons, allegedly criminals, such as drug pushers or thieves or drug users, killed by or under the supervision of members of the Philippines law enforcement, sometimes with the assistance of persons who were not part of the police, at various locations in the Philippines between 2016 and 2019.
Merci beaucoup, Madame. Thank you, Madam Courtroom Officer. Mr. Duterte, I'm not going to ask you to stand up because I know your condition, so I'm going to allow you to remain seated. You have just heard the reading of the charges, which are in accordance with the content of the arrest warrant you received. This means that you have been informed of the crimes of which you are accused. And this concludes the examination of the first point mentioned above. I will now turn to the second point, which concerns your rights as a suspect before this court. I will summarize some of these rights, which are of particular importance at this stage of the proceedings. Those rights are as follows. You can benefit from the assistance free of charge of a competent interpreter and benefit from the necessary translations to meet the requirements of fairness. You have the right to have the time and facilities necessary to prepare your defense and to communicate freely and confidentially with the counsel of your choice. You have the right to remain silent, and you cannot be forced to testify against yourself or to confess guilt. You can also make statements in your defence without taking an oath. In addition to any other disclosure provided for in the statute, the prosecutor must disclose to you, as soon as practicable, evidence in his possession or at his disposal that shows or tends to show your innocence or to mitigate your guilt, or that could undermine the credibility of the evidence against you. At the confirmation of charges hearing, you can contest the charges, challenge the evidence presented by the prosecutor, and present evidence. There will be no trial if the charges are not confirmed or if the proceedings against you are completed. You have the possibility to make an application for interim release pending trial. And finally, Mr. Duterte, you have the right to be informed as soon as possible and in detail of the nature, cause and content of the charges in the language that you fully understand and speak. Counsel, have you understood?
We're listening, Ma'am. We're listening. And before it ends, may we be allowed to present a manifestation on the circumstances behind the delivery of Mr. Duterte in this chamber.
Oui, Maître, je dois d'abord demander...
Yes, Counsel. This is as part of the procedure. And as we've said since the very outset, I need to ask Mr. Duterte himself to make observations as to the condition of his surrender to the court and the conditions of his detention at the detention facility of the court since his arrival. If he can please tell us these details.
Thank you. Can I...
Oui, Maître. Oui.
The presiding judge. Yes, Counsel.
Please. 2 days ago, the whole world has witnessed the degrading fashion in which a former president of a sovereign country was bundled into a private aircraft and summarily transported to The Hague. To us lawyers, this would be called an extrajudicial rendition. To the less legally inclined, it was a pure and simple kidnapping. My client was denied all access to the legal recourse in the country of his citizenship, and this all in the nature of political score settling. Two troubled entities struck an unlikely alliance, an incumbent president who wished to neutralize and choke the legacy of my client and his daughter on the other hand, and a troubled legal institution subject to delegitimization and desperate for a price cuts and a legal show today on the other hand. With this in mind, it is not surprising that my client was abducted from his country. ICC private jets do not drop out of the thin air. That jet which received my client was coordinated in advance. The UAE is not a state party to the ICC and has no obligation to cooperate with the court. Yet my client sat in transit in that country for more than 5 hours. I invite the registry's representative to present today in court to explain to the judges exactly how they believe this transfer was anything other than a gross abuse of process. Given the precipitous arrival of my client, an elderly man with debilitating medical issues, hard of hearing and poor of sight, he was taken to a hospital for observation. Only this morning have I met him for the first time with less than an hour to discuss legal legal issues. I have not been able to present him with a hard copy of the arrest warrant because we were not supplied with such. I have not even been able to explain to him what the prosecution requested when seeking the issuance of the arrest warrant. This is because the chamber only established a redacted version of the prosecution request last night. Other than to identify himself, my client is not able to contribute anything to this hearing. Most importantly, he is not able even to tell you that he has been informed of the charges as contained in the arrest warrant for a reason more pertinent to which I alluded in my written request to this honorable pretrial chamber this morning, and which is confidential in nature. Accordingly, I repeat my respectful request, which was rejected this morning, to postpone the substantive aspect of this hearing to the next week, when I will have the opportunity to sit with my client and to explain to him what a confirmation hearing is and what the disclosure is, and how the prosecution alleges that he committed crimes. I thank the court for its attention and regret to say that I do not have instructions to continue my submission any further today. Thank you.
Thank you, Counsel. Now, with regard to the health issues of Mr. Duterte, I believe that the court has taken specific measures with regard to his health situation, and I note that subsequent to his arrest and when he arrived at the detention center, the court's doctor was of the opinion that you were fully mentally aware and fit, and that you have undergone further checks and tests at the detention facility. And when you broached health matters, that's saying that you were not able to come to the hearing, the doctors who consulted with you were of the opinion that Mr. Duterte was not in a position to come to the hearing physically, but that if he gave written permission, he would be able to take part via video link. Now, that is with regard to the health matters that you just mentioned. They are very important, especially concerning the matter of age. Now, with regard to the rights of Mr. Duterte, we have before us the registrar's or the registry's report that says that Mr. Duterte has been informed of his rights, including Articles 66 and 67 of the Rome Statute, and that that he is aware of his rights and that he is also aware of the charges against him. We have before us the report of the registry saying that he was also aware of the warrant of arrest in the English language and that he is very well versed in the English language. Once again, you have the possibility of these charges being read in English, which was the case today. I have read to you in the French language the rights that he has, Mr. Duterte, before this court, and I'd like to specify once again that this is an initial hearing in order for Mr. Duterte to be aware of his rights and the charges against him. And then there will be a full procedure that will unfurl leading up to the confirmation of charges that will enable Mr. Duterte to raise all the matters that you have just raised with regard to the warrant of arrest, with regard to the crimes committed, with regards to the charges, and any other matters associated with his arrest, and the matters of jurisdiction of the court. You have the opportunity to do this throughout these proceedings leading up to the actual confirmation of charges hearing. Now, Counsel, with regard to your request for another hearing to be held next week, well, your initial request, that was, this was not accepted by the court. Now, you have seen the two decisions of the court that have been disclosed to you, and you are aware of the fact that these two decisions were refused. And this is by dint of the fact that this first initial appearance hearing does not need much preparation, as I have said to you on a number of occasions. I am now going to move on to the third stage, which is to set the date for the confirmation of charges hearing. After assessing all factors, including the need for the parties and participants to adequately prepare, as well as Mr. Duterte's rights, including his right to be tried within a reasonable time, the date for the commencement of the confirmation of charges hearing is September the 23rd, 2025. I would add that in accordance with Rule 1217 of the Rules of Procedure and Evidence, this date may be postponed by the Chamber depending on the progress of the proceedings, either on its own motion or at the request of the prosecutor or the defence. Before concluding this hearing, I would like to inform the parties of the next procedural steps. First, I would like to recall that in accordance with Rule 1212B of the Rules of Procedure and Evidence, the Chamber holds status conferences to ensure a small exchange of information under satisfactory conditions. These conferences are organised either ex officio or at the request of the prosecutor or the defence. Secondly, a set of decisions will be taken in a timely manner to ensure that the proceedings progress smoothly and expeditiously. More specifically, I am referring in particular to a decision on the arrangements and procedure for the disclosure of evidence, and a decision setting a timetable for the disclosure of evidence in such a way as to ensure orderly and efficient disclosure between the parties. In this regard, the Chamber orders the prosecutor to begin disclosing today the information on the basis of which the warrant of arrest was issued, and to complete this disclosure no later than within the next 7 days. The Chamber will also issue a decision on the participation of the victims who, according to the statute of the court and to the extent permitted by the Chamber, are authorised to present their views and concerns at this stage of the proceedings. We have come to the end of Mr. Duterte's first appearance hearing. I would like to thank all the participants in this hearing, the interpreters and the stenographers. This concludes today's hearing.
Patuloy po ninyong subaybayan ang live proceedings na nagaganap ngayon sa The Hague sa Netherlands.
At tandaan po, narito kami para maghatid ng balita saan mang dako ng mundo. Magandang gabi po. Ako po muli si Rikki Mathay.
Ako si Rikki Alagao Flores. Ito ang Mata ng Agila International. Para naman sa mga balitang nangyari sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo, patuloy pong umantabay sa aming mga social media channels. Magandang gabi.
In a surprising move, Russian President Vladimir Putin has expressed support for ending the conflict in Ukraine through peaceful means. Take a look.
Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Thursday that he was open to a U.S. proposed ceasefire in Ukraine, but said many issues still needed clarification and that any truce would need to address what he called the root causes of the conflict.
We agree with the propositions to stop hostilities, but we proceed from the fact that such ceasefire should be such that would lead to a permanent peace and remove the initial, original causes of the crisis. Is the ceasefire going to be used to continue forced mobilization, to continue rearming, to continue supplies of weaponry, to allow military units to regroup? But if nothing like this is done, then the question is bound to arise. How is control and verification going to go?
A day earlier, Moscow presented the U.S. with a list of demands to end its war in Ukraine, including preventing Kiev from joining NATO, ruling out foreign troops in the country, and recognition of Russian sovereignty over 4 provinces it claims to have annexed. Earlier this week, American and Ukrainian officials agreed to an immediate 30-day ceasefire, and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that Russia's response to the offer would say a lot about Moscow's true intentions.
So we hope to have a positive answer from them. The ball is truly in their court.
Donald Trump had said in the White House on Wednesday that he hoped the Kremlin would agree to end what the U.S. president called a bloodbath.
And hopefully we can get a ceasefire from Russia, and if we do, I think that would be 80% of the way to getting this horrible bloodbath finished. It's a bloodbath.
Putin thanked Trump for his efforts to end the war and said he might call Trump to discuss the issue.
So the very idea is great, I think, is correct, and we, of course, support it. There are, though, certain issues that we still need to look into and to discuss. And we need to hold consultations with our American partners, counterparts. Maybe we need to have a phone talk with President Trump to discuss that with him as well. But the very idea of ending this conflict in a peaceful manner, we support that.
If Putin's answer seemed diplomatic, Kremlin aide Yuri Ushakov was more blunt when asked about the U.S. proposal for an immediate truce.
A temporary ceasefire. What does it give us? It gives us nothing. It only gives the Ukrainians an opportunity to regroup, gain strength, and to continue the same thing.
Putin sent tens of thousands of Russian troops into Ukraine in 2022 in what he called a special military operation, triggering the largest military conflict in Europe since World War II and the starkest confrontation between Moscow and the West since the end of the Cold War. After severe setbacks early in the invasion, Russian forces have been advancing since mid-2024 and control nearly a fifth of Ukraine's territory. And they seem close to completely retaking a piece of Russian territory in Kursk that Ukrainian forces captured last summer. In a sign of the Kremlin's growing confidence, Putin donned a military uniform for a visit to his commanders in Kursk on Wednesday and told them to finish the job, quote, in the shortest possible time frame. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff is in Moscow Thursday to meet with Putin to further discuss the proposed ceasefire.
Now, Russian officials have made it clear to the U.S. that they don't want Keith Kellogg, Trump's special envoy for Ukraine and Russia, involved in high-level talks to end the war in Ukraine. Kellogg has been noticeably absent from recent key discussions, including meetings in Saudi Arabia. The reason? Russian President Vladimir Putin reportedly believes Kellogg is too close to Ukraine. As a former lieutenant general, Kellogg has been more outspoken in criticizing Russia's actions in Ukraine, particularly during last year's attacks on Ukrainian cities. However, Kellogg has also faced criticism for saying that Ukraine was responsible for the U.S. decision to pause intelligence sharing, a move that has since been reversed.
Yeah, but you know, this is one of those, very candidly, they brought it on themselves, the Ukrainians. What I mean by that, look, when we were in the Oval Office last week on Friday, and I'll kind of give you the background a little bit of it, is when we talked with President Zelensky before that meeting, there were 13 U.S. senators at Hay Adams. And we said, okay, this is like stage managing. This is what you want to say. It's basically going to come in. We have a precious metals deal. You're going to sign the deal. You're going to have lunch, have a press conference, exit stage right, and you're good to go. We continue to go. What happened became a very combative press conference that went on for almost, 50 minutes. That caught everybody a little bit by surprise. I was right there. And I think what happened is everybody said, wait a second, this is not what we thought this was going to be. You don't negotiate peace discussions in public. You don't try to challenge the President of the United States in the Oval Office that, in fact, you need to side with me and not the Russians. You don't become an independent interlocutor if you look at something like that. And he was forewarned.
It's unclear if Kellogg's absence from these talks is directly linked to Russia's request, but it's clear that his role in negotiations is under scrutiny. In a bold move, U.S. President Donald Trump has reiterated his desire to annex Greenland, citing security concerns. During a meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte at the White House, Trump emphasized the strategic importance of the Arctic island.
Mr. President, Greenland, what is your vision for the potential annexation of Greenland and getting them potentially to
Well, I think it'll happen, and I'm just thinking, I didn't give it much thought before, but I'm sitting with a man that could be very instrumental. You know, Mark, we need that for international security, not just security, international. We have a lot of our favorite players, cruising around the coast, and we have to be careful. And we'll be talking to you. It's a very appropriate, really a very appropriate question.
Rutte distanced NATO from the discussion, focusing instead on the broader security concerns in the Arctic region.
In the high north, so the Arctic, so what you did. So when it comes to Greenland, yes or not joining the US, I would leave that outside for me, this discussion, because I don't want to drag NATO in that. But when it comes to the high north and the Arctic, you are totally right. The Chinese are now using these routes. We know that the Russians are rearming.
But that whole area is becoming very important, and for a lot of reasons, the routes are, very direct to Asia, to Russia, and you have ships all over the place, and we have to have protection. So we're going to have to make a deal on that.
Greenland's outgoing Prime Minister, Mathay, swiftly rejected Trump's comments, stating enough is enough. He plans to convene a meeting of party leaders to reinforce their opposition to U.S. annexation. A dramatic incident unfolded at Denver International Airport on Thursday evening when an American Airlines plane caught fire while taxiing to the gate. The Boeing 737-800, operating as Flight 1006, had diverted to Denver from Colorado Springs due to engine vibrations and was headed to Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. After landing safely at approximately 5:15 p.m. local time, the plane's engine erupted in flames, prompting a swift evacuation of its 172 passengers and 6 crew members via emergency slides. Video shared on social media even showed passengers standing on the wing and descending on a portable staircase to safety. Fortunately, only a few minor injuries were reported during the evacuation. American Airlines praised the crew and first responders for their quick action, prioritizing the safety of everyone on board and on the ground. The FAA has launched an investigation into the incident, which adds to recent concerns about aviation safety in the U.S. A powerful storm brought heavy rain to Southern California, triggering multiple mudslides that trapped several vehicles in San Jacinto. Firefighters sprang into action, deploying a swift water rescue team to rescue 6 people stranded in their cars. The mudslides were part of a broader severe weather event that included a rare tornado in Pico Rivera and flash flood warnings across Los Angeles, Ventura, and Orange counties. In a significant setback for President Donald Trump's efforts to downsize the federal government, a California judge has ordered the reinstatement of thousands of recently fired probationary employees across 6 major U.S. agencies. The ruling, which applies to the Departments of Defense, Veterans Affairs, Agriculture, Energy Security, Energy, Interior, and the Treasury criticizes the Office of the Personnel Management for improperly directing these terminations. Take a look.
A California judge has ordered the Trump administration to reinstate thousands of recently hired employees who were fired. It's the most significant blow yet to the effort by President Donald Trump and his advisor Elon Musk to drastically shrink the federal bureaucracy. The ruling applies to probationary employees at 6 U.S. agencies: the Departments of Defense, Veterans Affairs, Agriculture, Energy, Interior, and the Treasury. The judge ruled that the Office of Personnel Management had improperly directed those agencies to fire workers without having the power to do so. He said, quote, "It is a sad day when our government would fire some good employee and say it was based on performance, when they know good and well that's a lie. Probationary employees in general can only be fired for performance issues." The White House and the other agencies did not immediately respond to requests for comment. The ruling came on a deadline day for government agencies to submit plans for a second wave of mass layoffs. About 25,000 workers across the U.S. government had been fired as of March 5th, and another 75,000 have taken a buyout.
Protesters stormed the lobby of Trump Tower today, demanding the release of a Colombian University student activist known as Khalil, who was taken into immigration custody. Now, Jewish Voice for Peace, which describes itself as a progressive Jewish anti-Zionist organization, organized the demonstration, saying they were taking over Trump Tower to register our mass refusal. Approximately 150 demonstrators gathered at the Fifth Avenue landmark, according to NYPD estimates.
Every American must resist and stand up, and we need to have actions like this and sit-ins like this and be willing. I mean, these people are out here putting their bodies on the line for our democracy. We all have to stand up and take that risk, because if we don't do that, our democracy will be gone. It's actually gone as we speak. Are we going to fight to get it back? We have to fight to get it back.
It is absolutely unprecedented, the grounds that are being cited by the government for purportedly claiming to revoke his green card and putting him in removal proceedings. This is a person who is a lawful permanent resident. This is a U.S. person. Those grounds are vague. They are rarely used. Essentially, they are a form of punishment and retaliation for the exercise of free speech. Mahmoud, of course, is a fighter. He's been a prominent advocate for Palestinian rights. He's equally unbowed. He's in good spirits considering these circumstances, and he looks forward to being back here at home in New York.
Protesters carried signs with messages including "Fight Nazis, not students," and "Free Mahmoud, Free Palestine." Police arrested 98 protesters in New York on Saturday, and subsequent transfer to immigration custody in Louisiana has triggered criticism from Democratic lawyers, UN officials, and civil liberties advocates. The protest comes days after the Trump administration canceled approximately $400 million in grants and contracts to Columbia University, citing concerns about anti-Semitic harassment on and near campus. The administration has claimed that pro-Palestinian campus protests have included support for Hamas. Trump Tower, home to the Trump Organization and the penthouse residence of President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump, has not issued a statement regarding the demonstration. Their son, Barron, has been living at the location since beginning his freshman year at NYU last year. In a dramatic confrontation, Democratic Representative John Larson from Connecticut blasted Elon Musk for failing to appear before a House Ways and Means Committee hearing. Larson criticized Republicans for blocking Musk's testimony, accusing them of prioritizing the interests of Musk and President Trump over their legislative duties.
Very sad morning when this committee, the oldest and most continuous in the Congress, neglects its responsibility and essentially holds this hearing today to block any further discussion. The men and women on this committee are good people. They're honest and caring people. And that's why I do not understand why you would relegate this committee to no longer being of significance and resort to saying you will do whatever Elon Musk and Donald Trump tell you to do. Where's the independence of the committee? Where's the legislature? We're an equal branch of government. And you start off with a blather, and yet when they look at the empty seats here, where's Elon Musk? I'm sure he's a genius and is a very credible person because of the wealth he's accumulated. But that does not put him above the law or the responsibility to come before this committee in this Congress. If he's so great, if these plans and all the fraud and abuse that he's found are so eminent, why isn't he here explaining it?
Larson also accused Musk, who leads the Department of Government Agency, or DOGE, of planning to privatize Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
You know why. Because he's out to privatize Social Security. He's been on television the last couple of days talking exactly about Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and what he intends to do. Privatize it. The American people, some of them may have been born at night, but not last night.
This controversy follows Musk's recent comments labeling Social Security a Ponzi scheme, sparking concerns among lawmakers about his intentions. As tensions rise, Democrats are pushing for greater transparency into Musk's administration, Musk's activities within the Trump administration, particularly regarding access to sensitive government data. Republicans have defended Musk's efforts to root out waste and fraud, but Democrats argue that his absence from the hearing undermines the committee's oversight role. Japanese firms agreed to raise wages by more than 5% on average this year, on course for their most substantial pay hike in over 3 decades, a relief for many workers, though some consumers said purse strings would remain tight in their household. As annual labor negotiations wrapped up this week, many of Japan's biggest companies said they met union demands in full. Sakuraku Chiba, an education company employee, welcomed the good news to cope with rising costs of living, adding that it made her feel like working harder.
I think it's a positive thing that I got a pay rise because the cost of living is going up, so it gave me some breathing room in my everyday life and more flexibility mentally as well. Overall, it made me feel like working harder.
However, for some in Japan, such as pensioners and those whose jobs aren't covered by the union negotiations, the rising cost of living continues to bite.
It's really difficult because my pension is just staying the same. It's as if you've got to protect yourself by downsizing in life. That kind of thing. And then, of course, my children are supporting me.
I really feel that things are bad. It's really bad when I come to Tokyo and go shopping. And I think, wow, that's expensive. But I hope that higher wages will help the economy.
The Danish Refugee Council warns that an additional 6.7 million people will be displaced worldwide by the end of next year. This comes as aid cuts from major donors like the U.S. take effect. The UN Refugee Agency reported over 117 million displaced people last year, with numbers expected to rise. These aren't just statistics, they're families fleeing with nothing, searching for basic necessities, according to Charlotte Slant, Secretary General of the Danish Refugee Council. Sudan and Myanmar are expected to see significant displacement, with Sudan facing the world's worst refugee crisis. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump's cuts to foreign aid are now impacting refugees, shutting down vital programs.
We were already overstretched, under-resourced, and literally under attack, with last year being the deadliest year on record to be a humanitarian worker. But of course, it's far tougher for the people who we serve. 300 million plus right now need humanitarian support. And so the pace and the scale of the funding cuts that we've faced are, of course, a seismic shock to the sector. Many will die because that aid is drying up. And across the humanitarian community, programs are being stopped right now. Staff are being let go right now. I think 10% of NGO colleagues were laid off in the course of February. And across the UN family and our partners, we're making tough choices day to day about which lives we will have to prioritize, which lives we will have to try to save.
And the news continues here on N25. We'll be right back.
Ngayong Sabado, sa Motorcycle Republic.
Happy International Women's Month! Ngayon, magra-ride kami papunta ng One Feather Plus Kitchen. Doon kami lagi actually, madalas kapag mayroong mga magagandang occasion like this.
Happy International Women's Month!
Isasama namin kayo tuwing Sabado, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Together, Sunday 25. Sunday 25.
To The Hague now, where former President Rodrigo Duterte. In a notable development, former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte did not appear in person at the International Criminal Court in The Hague for his initial hearing. Instead, he participated via video link, as confirmed by a court spokesperson. Duterte faces charges of crimes against humanity. Duterte has long insisted he instructed police to kill only in self-defense and has always defended the crackdown.
What his date of birth was and what his place of birth is. Is that all right, Counsel?
Yes. Of course, I did. My birth the day is March 28, 1945. I was born in the province of Leyte in the Philippines.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. As a preliminary point. Very well. Thank you, Mr. Duterte. As a preliminary point, it is useful to clarify the nature and limited scope of this first appearance hearing. Today's hearing is neither the start of the trial, nor is it a confirmation of charges hearing. During today's hearing, no evidence will be collected or presented, and the issues of Mr. Duterte's guilt or innocence will therefore not be addressed. In accordance with Article 61 of the Rome Statute, the Court's founding treaty, and Rule 1211 of the Rules of Procedure and Evidence, the main purpose of this initial appearance is to answer three questions. Firstly, the Chamber must ensure that the person who was the subject of the arrest warrant has been informed of the crimes of which he is accused. Second, the Chamber must ensure that this person has been informed of his rights as recognized by the Rome Statute. Third, the Chamber must set a date on which it intends to hold a confirmation of charges hearing.
We assert that those allegations will, of course, remain allegations until it is proven, right? So we maintain that the former president, Rodrigo Roa Duterte,
should be brought back to the Philippines.
We hope that the ICC stand with the Filipino people and jail Duterte, because actually he has long been vindicated as guilty of murders, guilty of all the killings.
If you're going to ask a lot of Filipino people, you will receive a response that they are for the war on drugs.
Yeah, it's not true, because I live in Davao City. Long time ago, he is our very good mayor in Davao City.
Well, today is actually former President Duterte's first appearance in the court. We are hoping that the administrative procedure just goes through smoothly so that the next hearings, and he will be called for the next hearings, and that we will continue our protests and continue fighting for human rights and justice for those who died.
Po, nung isang araw, ngayon, na patuloy na nagpapakita ng kanilang suporta sa ating dating Pangulo. Nakikita po natin yung kanilang mga peace rallies doon sa Pilipinas at sa iba't ibang lugar.
Of course.
Huwag natin kalimutan na ang problema ng bayan ay hindi ang mga Duterte.
Correct.
Correct.
Tama po.
Ang totoong problema ng bayan, kayong lahat nandito kayo, nakikipagsapalaran kayo sa ibang bansa dahil walang oportunidad doon sa ating bansa. Patuloy ang kahirapan,
Check.
patuloy ang kagutuman, patuloy na walang nangyayaring kaunlaran. Nakikita nyo yung Netherlands, di ba?
Yes po.
Gusto natin maging Netherlands ang
Correct.
In a bid to regain ground in its second largest market, Tesla is set to unveil a more affordable version of its best-selling Model Y. Take a look.
Tesla is planning a cheaper version of its best-selling car. Reuters sources say the firm will make a new variant of the Model Y crossover at its plant in Shanghai. The car will reportedly be smaller and cost at least 20% less to produce. The sources say most of the output from Shanghai will be sold in China, where Tesla faces a battle to retain market share. They add that mass production will begin next year, with output in Europe and North America to follow later. There was no comment from the firm on the report. Tesla chief Elon Musk said in January that his company would introduce cheaper models in the first half of the year, but he didn't give any details on the pricing or size of any new vehicles. Last year, Reuters reported that Tesla had dropped plans for a new lower-cost car, often dubbed the Model 2. Musk called those reports a lie, without offering any evidence. Now a new launch would come amid ever-mounting competition in China. The Model Y was the country's best-selling car for the past 2 years, but local rivals like BYD have been grabbing market share. Tesla also faces a fierce new challenger in Xiaomi, better known as a phone maker. Its first car, the SU7 sedan, has been outselling Tesla's competing Model 3 since December.
For the first time in several years, a total lunar eclipse known as blood moon is captivating viewers across North and South America. And this event occurs when Earth moves between the sun and moon, casting a reddish hue on the lunar surface. The eclipse is visible in its entirety across the Americas, with the best viewing times during totality from 2:26 to 3:31 a.m. EDT, March 14. Unlike solar eclipses, lunar eclipses are safe to watch without protective gear. The moon's reddish color is due to sunlight passing through Earth's atmosphere, filtering out shorter wavelengths and leaving mainly red light to illuminate the moon. This is the first total lunar eclipse visible since 2022 of November and marks the beginning of a series of eclipses, with the next one occurring on September 7 to 8 this year, visible in parts of Asia and Australia. Meanwhile, a partial lunar eclipse pierced through the cloudy London skyline in the early hours of Friday. The city residents were expecting to see a blood-red moon, but were instead met with a yellow-tinged moon, often obscured by drifting clouds. Elsewhere in the world, the full lunar eclipse painted the sky with a rosy hue. The lunar eclipse happens when the sun, earth, and moon align such that the moon passes into the Earth's shadow. While the eclipse lasts roughly 6 hours, the totality period where the moon is completely in the Earth's shadow lasts over just an hour. According to NASA, the next total lunar eclipse will fall on September 7. And with that, we end tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on Net 25, I'm Alma Angeles. Have a great weekend. Good night.
This program is supported by